How would you describe Spider-Man? That's not a rhetorical question. I'd like you to take a moment and think about the character of Spider-Man, of Peter Parker specifically, and think of the words that you would use to describe him. Type them into the comments if you like, I'd be curious to read them. Done? Now you've probably thought of words like funny, quippy, maybe annoying, but he's often funny in an annoying way, principled, courageous, strong and agile if we're talking about physicality, heroic, cool, certainly sometimes, guilt-ridden because Peter Parker carries the deaths of Ben and Gwen and George around with him, flaky, I mean maybe that's how his friends would describe him, but we the readers know all the things that he's juggling with his alter ego. He's intelligent too, interested in science, nerdy, attractive for sure, especially when played by Andrew Garfield, kind, unlucky, caring, driven, determined, down to earth, friendly, local, responsible. I would expect that most people would have some variation of the above for how they see Spider-Man. You might also have young, or young at heart. Certainly there are many versions of Peter Parker that are young, and if you're experiencing the character through TV or film, he likely is. Less common might be ADHD. I'll have to make a video on that one day, so I'll leave it off for now. Less common might be underdog, always fighting against the odds. Less common might be angry, filled with a righteous anger and always holding that back. Less common might be family man, caring for his aunt, or his wife, or his children. And as we build up these words, we build up a picture of who Peter Parker is. This is how we have collectively as a culture defined this character over his 60 plus years as a superhero. Every writer might emphasize different words in the picture of Peter. Peter David, for example, plays with his anger more. J.M. DeMatteis played with the psychological element. Bendis played more with his humor and his youth. But there's a distinctive Peter Parker that we should be able to recognize. If Peter was letting civilians die, or Peter couldn't solve basic science problems, that's very clearly outside this word picture that we have for the character. That would clearly be not Peter Parker. We know his shape, and it's similar across iterations of the main 616 Parker, and all over the multiverse of comics and films and TV shows. To paraphrase Mr. Incredible, Peter Parker is Peter Parker. So who is this? Let me back up a moment and give some context. Back in 2000, Marvel released the first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man. Written by Brian Michael Bendis and drawn by Mark Bagley, it was designed to be a fresh start for the character. It retold the origin of Spider-Man and continued onward by remixing Spider-Man history with all the advantage of hindsight, to tell fresh takes on familiar characters. It was, by all counts, a success. There are many people who are reading Spider-Man comics today that are doing so because of Ultimate Spider-Man. It had a video game. It introduced Miles Morales. Even when the rest of the Ultimate Universe lost favor with fans, Ultimate Spider-Man shone brightly till its end. It is a mostly beloved series that is held dear in the hearts of fans. And so when, in 2023, Marvel announced there was going to be a new Ultimate Spider-Man, fans were delighted. The Ultimate Spider-Man brand was strong, and the name alone was enough to get people giddy. That it was going to also be written by Jonathan Hickman was the icing on the cake. Hickman had had popular runs on both Avengers and Fantastic Four previously, and was the architect of the Krakoa era of X-Men, reinventing the mutant formula for Marvel. Fans liked him too. And then, to sweeten the pot, Marvel also announced that Peter Parker was going to be older in this series, married to Mary Jane with 2 children. You see, this universe was created by a villain known as the Maker. We don't have time to get into his whole deal, but importantly, his goal when creating this universe was to stop the creation of superheroes. In Spider-Man's case, that meant stopping teenage Peter from getting fatefully bitten by a spider. And so Peter is a husband and a father by the time that the spider comes back into his life. This was exciting for lots of people for different reasons. For some, the Ultimate brand and Hickman's name was enough, and Peter could have been anything and they would have read it. For others, Peter as a father was something different, something we'd seen before, sure, but not often. And it was exciting to see a series embrace this little seen aspect of him. And then, for a third group, This was exactly what they'd wanted from Spider-Man. They'd stopped reading Spider-Man back in 2008 when his marriage was undone, and I really don't have time to get into that, but since then they've made it very clear that the only thing to get them reading again is for Peter to be back with Mary Jane Watson, for editorial to let him grow up. And this was a beloved series written by a beloved writer that gave them exactly this, a Peter who was married to Mary Jane and older with 2 children. It was a series almost custom made for them. And so now we have all that context, we come back to the original question, who is this? Factually, this is Peter Parker from 2024's Ultimate Spider-Man series. He's Spider-Man from Earth 6160. He is also, according to many online whenever Ultimate Spider-Man gets discussed, who Spider-Man is supposed to be, because he's older, and has kids, and is married to Mary Jane. In the series itself, he's also, well, he's cool and sexy, and things seem to be working out for him. The series became a lightning rod for that third group of fans, a flag to raise up and wave into the faces of Spider-Man editorial. This is the Spider-Man we want. This is the Peter Parker that we've been asking for all these years. And when issue 1 got reprinted and reprinted and reprinted, it was clearly a signal that all fans agreed with them. The sales chart showed it. To some, it became Ultimate versus the traditional Amazing Spider-Man. We couldn't enjoy 2 cakes in different flavours. The Ultimate cake became the recipe for all cakes to be baked to. The ultimate of it all, the Hickman of it all, was forgotten in the noise. If people were buying and liking the book, it was only because Marvel had given us the first true Peter Parker since 2008. And this was that Peter Parker, right? Right? Let's go back to that word picture that we created at the beginning to see where Hickman has focused. And before I do, I want to lower your hackles a little bit. If you're watching this as somebody who loves Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man, know that many of the issues made it into my favourites of 2024 list. Know that none of what I'm about to say means that you shouldn't like Ultimate Spider-Man, and please trust that we'll get to that. This is deconstruction, not an attack. And so is this Peter Parker funny? Well, he is. I think the whole series is funny, but he's funny in the same way that Jonah is funny in this world, in the same way that Ben is funny, the same way that many of the characters are funny in this universe. We're going to keep that word to describe Peter, but it's on thin ice. And yes, he's strong. He punches a dinosaur, and he's agile too, but is he principled? Ben is, Jonah is, but we haven't really explored what this Peter's principles are beyond a no-kill rule that seems to come from nowhere. That isn't the focus. He's certainly cool, attractive too, we mentioned that, but he's not really guilt-ridden. The series hasn't really explored why he wants to be Spider-Man, but it's certainly not motivated by guilt. He's not interested in science, and there hasn't really been a focus on his intelligence. He's a photographer in this world, and most of the science tech goes over his head. He's not flaky, not really. The series isn't interested in him missing parent-teacher evenings, or his daughter's play, or his anniversary dinner. He doesn't really need to balance his superhero life with his civilian one. He may be kind, but it's not shown. He may be caring, but it's not shown. He's not unlucky. He's not driven nor determined. For most of the issues, we don't really know what he wants, so it's hard to know what's driving him. He's living in a luxury apartment with a beautiful wife and best friends with a millionaire, so he loses that down-to-earth quality. He's not mixing it up with people in the streets of New York. He's too busy in exotic locales, so he can hardly be called local or friendly. He's not responsible in a lot of little ways. He lets his daughter see him as a superhero and lets her keep his secret for months. He risks his family's life in a confrontation he was ill prepared for and brings his son along on adventures. The series isn't focused on Peter's need to balance his power with his responsibility. In many ways, the series has felt like a Peter before Uncle Ben's death and that there was a shoe ready to drop. But the series is ending with one issue to go, so I can only assume this isn't going to happen. He's not young. He's not angry or driven by anger, but he is absolutely the underdog. The whole world is against him. And of course, he's a family man. He's got a family that he loves. Except, he doesn't really spend a lot of time with them as a family, right? We don't see that school run, or homework, or family dinner. We don't explore how he feels about his Aunt May and his Uncle Ben. We mostly see MJ when she gets worried, and for kisses and dates, and rarely for anything else, the day-to-day life of coupledom. The most time he spends with his family is during a dinner where it is revealed that Peter spending the time isn't even him. He is a family man in name alone. But the series is not interested in exploring that reality, only exploring in how it interacts with his superhero story. And so we're left with strong,
courageous,
agile, funny, cool, attractive,
heroic,
and the underdog. And I would posit that this isn't Peter Parker anymore, beyond the name. He's one word away from being any other superhero. Take the underdog away, and that's Captain America, or Iron Man, or Captain Marvel. Take attractive away and you have Deadpool. Take strength away and that's Daredevil or Hawkeye or Johnny Storm or Black Cat or Star-Lord or Nightcrawler. What's left with this ultimate version of Peter Parker is very little actual Peter Parker. And so when people hold this character up as the epitome of Spider-Man, the exemplar of what Spider-Man comics should be, their example of the perfect Spider-Man is just not very Spider-Man at all. And really, truly, it's okay that he's not. I'll circle back to this, I promise. But who is Spider-Man? What is the epitome of Spider-Man to me? Spider-Man, at his core, is like us. J.M. DeMatteis summed it up like this. Peter is an everyman. He's me, he's you. He's not the chosen one, not someone special. What makes him such a memorable character is that he's a decent human being, struggling, as I think we all do, to do the right thing in life. But like most of us, he often screws up, sometimes spectacularly.
He's flawed, he fails, but, and here's where Peter does embody the best of us, he always faces those flaws, picks himself up and goes back out there again, continuing to do his best, striving to be a good man and live a decent, compassionate life.
But again, this isn't because he's special or chosen. It's because he embodies the qualities of what we all have, struggles that we all face. Maybe we don't wear masks or shoot webbing, but I think most of us can relate to Peter, can see in him a mirror of ourselves. Historically, Spider-Man came into a comics world in which the heroes were adults. They were big and strong and fought crime and things worked out for them. They worried about villains, sure, but not about the everyday stuff. Superman wasn't worried about rent, Batman wasn't wrapping up warm for the winter. They were icons, they were mythic figures, destined for greatness, paragons of virtue. Teenagers in these comics were sidekicks, there to support the hero but rarely there to be heroes themselves. And then came teenage Peter Parker, a hero in his own right. And he wasn't a shining example of a hero, he messed up all the time. He quit when things got hard, he caught colds and lost fights, couldn't afford rent, and missed out on dates with beautiful women because he had a crime to stop. Spider-Man is not a perfect person, but he is the person that is trying to just do the right thing. He was never destined for greatness, he was bitten by accident. He's the most popular superhero across the whole world, adorned on backpacks and lunchboxes for millions of children, because we can imagine that maybe, if we got powers one day, we might be able to be just like him. Like, yeah, we'd mess up a bunch and we wouldn't always get things right, but we'd try, just like Peter Parker tries. He's like us. There's a word that I should have included right at the start of this video, that I should have put right at the center of who Peter Parker is. Relatable. And I don't mean that Peter can't go into space or fight alongside Doctor Strange or travel into a multiverse, but that when he does, he should never really be comfortable. That one of the core tenets of Spider-Man is that he's a character that, like you and me, is just like a week away from getting his life together. For us, there's just that big project at work to get out of the way, or your cousin's wedding, and then yes, you'll definitely have time to start sorting out all the junk at the back of the cupboard in the hallway. But that's Spider-Man too. Except his big project at work is a gang war, or his cousin's wedding is Doc Ock cooking up some scheme. Peter Parker is handsome and funny. He's full of guilt and anger and kindness. He's absolutely terrible with money and terrible at keeping dates and terribly unlucky, but he's smart and caring and sometimes cool. He's loving and he's loved, and he's relatable. He's human. But there's another word you could use to describe Spider-Man, metatextually: versatile. We've been speaking a lot about who Spider-Man is, with a focus on his main appearances in comics and movies and most shows, but he's a character that has been around for over half a century, and the core of the character can move far from the center without breaking. In the Spider-Verse movies, Peter Parker isn't the hero. He's the mentor, a father figure of sorts to Miles. In the MCU, he's a mentee instead to Tony Stark, and his story and his character is defined in part by his relationship to older characters. To people in Japan, Spider-Man piloted a giant mech. Sometimes he's a noir detective. To my son, Spider-Man is a little kid who has a very elaborate secret base under his house, apparently unnoticed by his aunt, who swings around with Miles and Gwen to stop villains from doing naughty things like stealing golf balls and making people dance. Every one of them is Spider-Man. And while this new Ultimate Spider-Man is not the epitome of Spider-Man, at least not to me, he's still Spider-Man. In fact, I think one of the reasons that he's popular is because he's Spider-Man as an icon. Spider-Man as a mythic figure, always destined to get bitten by that spider. He's a paragon of virtue. He's the Spider-Man that would have existed before 1962 when Spider-Man turned up and changed the world of comics. He's a superhero in a traditional way. He's a Spider-Man to look up to, rather than to relate to. He's a power fantasy. The Spider-Man who will get the girl and live the family life and beat up the bad guys and not have to worry about rent or getting the flu or missing appointments. And in 2024 and 2025, it makes sense why that Spider-Man might appeal. It's nice to see our guy Spider-Man get to just win without compromise. I don't think Ultimate Spider-Man is Peter Parker, not as we traditionally know the character. I don't think that he should be held up as the perfect take on the character, the way that all creators should write about Spider-Man. We have that Peter Parker, the Peter Parker we've grown with, still being Peter Parker, and now we have this version to add alongside all the other versions we've seen of the character. Another shade of Spider-Man that we can explore. Two cakes to enjoy.